Hi guys. Okay, hi guys. I need to say, first of all, it's looking a bit bleak back here because, as you know, we are moving and there behind you is a massive pile of boxed up stuff. So that's why I've taken a lot of stuff down from here. Anyway, I thought we'd talk about something. You know, I know a lot of you have been talking about this, asking why I've gone off luxury. And will I quit talking about luxury on YouTube? You know, so many questions. I am going to talk about in a separate video whether I'm going to quit talking about luxury on YouTube altogether. But what I wanted to talk to you about today is fundamentally why I went off it, what changed, what happened. So first of all, the first thing I've written down, I've got a notes here, is luxury. It's a joke. It's become a joke to me. Let me explain. This is a great example. I mean, what are we talking about? These, can you call it a shoe? You know, I spoke about these a couple of videos ago. This for me epitomizes how I feel about luxury right now. It's like the emperor's new clothes. I feel as though there are things coming out which are weird or ridiculous and highly expensive. Someone told me that these shoes, if we're going to call them shoes, are $1,500. And I said in that last video, the irony is they will sell out. People will buy them. And I think that these luxury houses are literally laughing at us. I mean, how can you make that and actually sell it as a shoe? It's ridiculous. I just think, like, where would you wear that? Why would you wear that? It makes no sense to me. And so that's the first thing. I feel like luxury has become, I feel like it's mocking us. I say that as well because if we look at Hermes and these games and the hoops you have to jump through to even buy a flipping belt sometimes is ridiculous. You know, if you go into a store and you're there trying to spend that money that you've worked really hard to earn and they can't even be bothered to serve you, or that, you know, you've got to buy like a load of other stuff you don't want to qualify for something that you do want. I know that luxury is how it is and that's how you build exclusivity. I get that. But I disagree with treating customers badly. I disagree with being necessarily, not always, but whenever I've been in there, it's not been a fun experience. It's not been one that I've wanted to rush back to experience again. Whereas Dior, perfect, gorgeous experience, lovely people. But Hermes, not that I'm saying the people aren't lovely, but whenever I've been in there, it's not been a good experience. And it can go for any of these brands, you know, so many of these brands don't treat people nicely in my experience. And I just personally think if I'm going to go and spend my money somewhere, I want to be treated in a way that's respectful, you know, and I don't feel like a lot of these brands do that. I've had so many of you write to me about Chanel as well, saying that you've been into Chanel and you've been ignored or treated like you can't afford it, or, you know, and it's like, why has this got to be? It just feels so crazy and ridiculous and just like completely out of touch, to be honest. You know, I was thinking, actually, I went into Marks and Spencer's because what's happened to me, Marks and Spencer's has actually got quite good in a way. I went into Marks and Spencer's a couple of weeks ago and the staff was so lovely and just bending over backwards to help you and make sure things were perfect. All for like a pair of trousers that were about £29, you know? And yet you go into some of these designer boutiques and the service can be snooty, it can be rude, not always. I'm not saying, like, if you're someone watching and you're a salesperson and you're one of the nice ones, I'm not saying that you're like that, but I think for a lot of us when we go in, you do think about Pretty Woman sometimes, and that's a scenario where she couldn't get served. Even all the way back then in the 90s, it was a thing that some luxury stores are like that. And I think that's wrong. And that's part of the reason why, for me, I feel like it's turned into a joke. Okay, the next reason why I've gone off luxury is the prices. I don't mind paying a high price for something when I feel like it's worth it. But if you're going to charge me £10,000 for a classic flap. It needs to look like it's worth £10,000. And in my personal opinion, I own a few classic flaps that I bought back years ago when they were still expensive, but not what they are now. They don't look 10k, in my opinion. What does? What bag really looks 10k? Even if you take a Birkin, does it really look the price tag that it is? It's a piece of leather, you know? And I know that I've completely done like a 180 on this, haven't I? Because a lot of you have been saying to me for years, oh, it's just a piece of leather. Like, how is it worth that much money? I'm totally seeing that now. And when I think about luxury, I do feel like it's a fallacy. Like, we're all being sold a fantasy that things are worth this much money when actually they're not. The next reason is I got bored. I got bored of it. Okay, here it is. Here is the thing. I felt like I had everything I wanted, or I have everything I wanted. And in fact, I started selling stuff. Things that I thought I would never sell, I started selling because I wasn't using them and I wasn't feeling it anymore. And I was looking at them thinking, well, there's 2k sat there. You know, what else could I spend that on? I could do other stuff with that money. And I just got bored. I felt like there was nothing new coming out from any of these brands that I didn't feel I already had. I don't need another Lady Dior. I don't need another classic flap. Unless it's in some fancy magical unicorn colour that I've never seen before and it really catches my eye. But I don't feel like I need any of this stuff anymore. And maybe that's just me growing up, but I still love luxury, okay? Don't get me wrong. I still enjoy the things I've got and I still love wearing my bags. But actually, and this is what my second video is going to be about whether I'm quitting luxury. I've got so much more into contemporary brands. Contemporary bag brands are catching my eye more now than your Chanel's, your Dior's, your Hermes, Gucci, etc. Those other brands are catching my eye. The next thing that actually concerns all of you guys is I felt like the audience got bored as well of luxury. I was, if I said this in a video a while ago where I was talking about, in my opinion, why I think people are quitting luxury YouTube. And I was saying that in 2019 through to 2022, I feel like that was the peak for luxury on YouTube. And you might be someone watching who does luxury and you're like, I disagree, I'm getting loads of views, in which case, fair enough. But I'm talking about for me on my channel. I feel like my audience, you guys have grown up with me. And 2019 to 2022, through COVID, etc., a lot of us were really, really into luxury and interested in that sort of content. And then something changed. I remember 2022 early, once the lockdown things ended and everyone went back to normal, views on luxury did this for me. They dropped through the floor. And it kind of went hand in hand with me not being that interested in it either at that point. Like, I was still into it. Still am now. I'm not going to say I'm never going to go and buy a designer bag again. I'm not going to say that. But something changed with all of us. And that also coincided with all of these crazy price hikes where things got so expensive to a point where things weren't worth the new price tag. And I wonder how much of that lack of interest was to do with price rises and everyone going, oh, it's not worth it. I'm out. I'm done. And how much of it was just all of us growing up together and priorities changing. Like, a lot of you will say to me, I had a baby, I did whatever. My money that I would once have spent on a designer bag was going on other things and still is. Savings, investments, maybe you bought a new house, maybe you did whatever. Everyone's spending their money on different things that aren't necessarily designer bags anymore. And also, I think, there is this real interest now in pre-loved. buying your bags pre-loved. You get a good saving, you can find some great stuff out there. I particularly am into the vintage pieces that are like over 20 years old. That's what I like the 80s and 90s pieces. And I'm really lucky. I've got some really cool stuff that I've bought from Luxury Promise over the years that has just been like quirky and cool, that has been very different to the stuff that I typically own. And I think that's another thing as well. So many more of us going, oh, you know what? I don't want to go in store anymore and spend all that money. I'm going to go and buy something pre-loved secondhand. And really it's these reasons why I've gone off luxury. I feel done with it. I still like it, but I'm not that fixated on it anymore. It's just, you know, I can't describe it. I still am interested in it, but I'm not rushing to go and buy it the way I used to. And actually, I got like an email newsletter through for one brand a couple of weeks ago, and they had this, it was like a fabric bag. It was really small. And it looked like a rag, and it was £9,000. And I saw it and I just laughed to myself. I thought, you know what? What's gone on here? It was literally about this big, and it looked like an old rag, and it was just a piece of material, and it was £9,000. Now, I'm going to do a follow-up video on whether I'm actually going to quit talking about luxury altogether. And in that video, I'm going to show you some of my favourite bags I'm using right now. And plot twist, they're not designer. They're not designer. They are from other brands. And I'm really excited to show you them because they're quirky, they're cute, they're different, they're fresh. They're things you probably haven't seen, and maybe they will interest you. But anyway, thank you all for watching. Be sure to watch the next video if you want to know whether I'm actually going to quit or not. Maybe I will, don't know. Not sure yet. By the time I do that second video, probably will know. Anyway, thank you, and I'll see you in the next one.